Howdy, and welcome to Popular Liberty. It is April 9th in the year 2022 of our Lord Jesus Christ. And I want to welcome to the show both Pete Canones and Justin Cornett. And you all know Pete, so he needs no introduction. And but Justin Cornett, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all of what you're all about?
Sure. My name is Justin Cornett. I am the president and founder of For All. Tennessee is our only chapter currently, but we are hoping to change that in the future. I've been active in politics in a number of different roles and a number of different capacities, campaigns, policy, grassroots. I mean, you name it. I've at least dabbled in it. With all this COVID stuff going on, I found myself with the opportunity to try to start something, and we came up with this idea for All Tennessee. And what we do is we've kind of tried to, for lack of a better word, reinvent the nonprofit in the public policy space. The way most organizations work in this space is, they've got a board of people that put together an agenda, and then they go out and ask people to support that agenda. And some of it you might like, and some of it you might not. And that might make you hesitant to give money or support any of those things, even when some of it's good. So we thought giving people options would be a good way to go about it. So For All doesn't take a position on any policies, really. As an organization, what we do is we identify policies that empower people or limit government, primarily because both of those things equal freedom, and empower people is how Democrats hear it, and limit government is how Republicans hear it. And we put all of these ideas out in space and try to inform people about these different problems. Like in Tennessee, a lot of the votes in the legislature on the House side are not on the record. So, for example,
Really?
Yeah. So
how in the world did they swing that bat?
It's the rules, and they get to set them. So, it makes it easier for them to kill things that they don't want through, is kind of the logic. So,
yeah,
and they got us,
lack of transparency.
Sure. And they got us on one of those last year. But, civil asset forfeiture. Not a lot of people know what civil asset forfeiture is. But as soon as you tell them what it is, everybody's appalled that it's a real thing, that police can actually do this. So, we take these ideas and we throw them out in the general public. And then we ask, what do you guys want us to do? And we hand them a ballot, and whatever they vote for is the stuff that becomes the short list on the agenda. So
now dive into that slightly, because I'm told it's a little bit more complex than that. It's not simply a ballot. There's a weight to it. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. So there are three groups of people that have to approve anything that we would work. Those are our 3-person board, our advisory board, and our membership. So essentially what happens is we collaboratively put all these ideas together, and then we make sure everybody's okay with them. And as soon as everybody's okay with them, we start throwing them out. If new ideas pop up, we float them by the board and the advisors. And if the board and the advisors like it, we'll put it out in front of the members. And then, we legitimately just have a vote, and a simple approval ballot. They gave me a list of, 23 or so items this year. So I cut the 8 that were most unlikely to get anywhere and focused on, 14, 15 bills. And looks like we're going to end up getting 3, possibly 4 of those through.
What are they? It's like, from a, which of them would be most interesting from a libertarian perspective that you're getting?
That is a fair question. Probably we got a smaller bill we were working 4 civil asset forfeiture bills. One was like the one ring that ruled them all, and if we had gotten that one, we didn't need the other 3. But we didn't get that one, so we got one of the other 3. And the one of the other, the one that we did get will require anything that Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency confiscates through a civil process to see the inside of a courtroom, which it does not now. Tennessee, to my knowledge, is the only state that uses an administrative court process on civil asset forfeitures, which is an administrative judge, not an elected judge. It's not a bureaucrat. It all happens at the Department of Safety. You're prosecuted and judged by the Department of Safety. They don't pay for your legal expenses, the whole 9 yards. It's a gigantic mess. So
I heard you guys had another one that you're at the local level where they're able to say that, oh, if you like they have to pay for your legal defenses. And there used to be like a cap on that. There was like $500, and then you guys managed to up that. Can you tell me about that? Yeah,
we did that one last year, and we thought that was a really good bill. What it does is, prior to last year, the state would supposedly reimburse legal expenses up to $3,500 or 25% of the property value. The problem is in Tennessee, the average seizure, depending on who you talk to, Institute for Justice has it at $700. The research that was presented at the in the state legislature a couple of years ago had it at about $2,500. At either rate, you're talking about a max of about $500 for your legal defense, and if you've ever had to hire a lawyer, you know that doesn't get you anywhere. So we worked a bill that increased that number to $10,000 and got rid of the 25% language entirely, thinking now if they take something, they have to be on the hook for up to $10,000 in legal expenses. But I had a conversation with the president of the Defense Attorneys Association here in Tennessee this past fall, and he said that no one ever gets reimbursed for those. Like he doesn't know anybody that has ever been reimbursed for attorney's fees on a civil asset forfeiture case. And he is the president of the Defense Attorneys Association. He said he fought it more than a handful of times, and he's lost his appeals more than once. Apparently, there's only one place in the state you can go to appeal. So if you don't live in Nashville, you've got to drive, a whole day to get back and forth.
That's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. Like if you're going from Knoxville, I used to live in Knoxville for a while. And so I'm well aware of the geography of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Coming down those Smoky Mountains, you got to drive nice and slow.
Knoxville's my stomping grounds. I grew up in Lenore City, right outside of Knoxville.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're like right around there. Mm-hmm. Pete, you were about to ask something or comment something.
I forgot.
It was civil asset forfeiture related.
Yeah, it was civil asset forfeiture. It was like
PWRA.
So it sounded like the court that they drag you into it almost sounds like it's quote unquote private.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's a very interesting scenario. And again, we worked with Institute for Justice on our big civil asset forfeiture bill this year. And according to them, we are the only state in the country that uses these kind of courts. There are 5 locations in the entire state that you can go to have your case heard. All of them are Department of Safety locations. The judge is a Department of Safety employee. The prosecutor is a Department of Safety employee. You are not entitled to you don't get a free lawyer. You have to go out and hire your own lawyer. And before you do any of these things, the very first thing you have to do in a civil asset forfeiture seizure case, if you want to try to get your stuff back, is pay a $350 bond that you don't get back. So it's a really bad system right now, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's no elected officials, and it's just bureaucracy. It's just bureaucrats.
Right. We got
career employees.
Yeah, 100%.
They're bureaucrats.
Last year we got a bill passed that got rid of the bond as well, but it had a fiscal note attached to it, meaning it was going to take money away from the state, and they had to calculate that into the budget. And we couldn't get it out of finance. We couldn't get it attached to the budget. So it passed the committees that it needed to, but we couldn't get it funded, so it never became law.
Okay.
So, like, dive into like some of the other things that you've been working on, because you don't take on like any like partisan issues. No. You don't, and it's interesting because you're a nonpartisan, non-ideological. Well, it's like you don't have a right or a left ideology,
right?
But you do have your own ideology, but it's neither right nor left. And and so how is it you actually get funded? Because that's an important, because you guys you're not like, you're not like, going into like the big corporations and the banksters, and you don't have like a Soros sugar daddy or anything like that. Tell us how that works.
No, we definitely could use a sugar daddy. So anybody listening, if you want a sugar daddy, just yell at me.
You will absolutely sell out, no question.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing with the way the organization is set up. It doesn't lend itself to big donors like that, because they can't steer our ship. The members have to vote on whatever we do. And if the members don't approve it, then I'm sorry, guys, they didn't approve it, So I need a sugar daddy that understands that that's how it works and sees the bigger picture in what we're trying to do. As you mentioned, we don't take on a lot of partisan stuff, and it's 100% by design. We talked briefly about political parties and the effects that it has on our politics in this country in general. If you read George Washington's farewell address, he drops about 750 to 1,000 words on why parties are going to kill our country. And it reads like it's Bible prophecy right now. If you really read it, every single thing he says, you can identify in this country right now as a real problem. So we're not going to fix this by going through our parties or voting for the right party or any of that stuff. The only way we can fix what's going on here is if we can find a way to get all of us united, not one faction against the other faction, but all of us working together against or to support our elected officials and make sure that they do our bidding as opposed to theirs or their donors or their parties bidding.
And now tell me about how you go about the actual lobbying process. Like, I mean, do you have to, go into a smoke-filled room and, drop a little bit of money in a brown paper bag under the table? Like tell me how this actually works.
Again, the way the organization works, we don't do money for politicians at all. We don't endorse candidates. We don't tell people not to vote for people. We don't tell any of it, because I mean, the reality is I don't agree with my parents all the time, or my beautiful redheaded fiance. I don't agree with anybody all the time, and I'm not going to beat them up when I do disagree. It doesn't do me any good. Yeah. The guy that ran our ballot access bill twice, actually he's run it more than twice. He's run it for all twice. But he also ran a bill a couple of years back that would have banned hoodies on state property. It was a horrible bill. It was the dumbest thing in the whole wide world. Keep the scary people away. It was when all this protest stuff was going on. So the solution, of course, was going to be to ban a hoodie. But what good does it do for me to go and beat this guy up when he has literally busted his ass and really taking it on the chin for carrying this ballot access bill for us? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we don't negotiate with these guys like that. We're not trying to be a part of their organization. We want the constituents. We want to be able to walk into any office and not care who's sitting there or what party they are in or what they even think. We want to be able to go in there, have a cordial conversation with them, and go and talk to their district, and then come back and tell them what their district does.
How does that usually go, that conversation, for both sides on, like for the politician himself and then for the constituents? Because those sound like two very different conversations.
Well, I mean, sometimes they are. It just kind of depends, you know. I mean, there was a gentleman that I spoke to a few weeks ago that when I was trying to explain to him what we do with the organization, he said, "So wait, you're telling me that you go and ask the constituents what they want, and then you tell the rep what their constituents want, basically helping them do their job for their constituents?" And I was like, yeah, that's a good way to put it, because essentially that's what we're doing. So it just depends on the rep and what the topic is. Like I had a guy who.
How often do you? Question. How often do you get a representative where when you tell them, "Hey, I got X number of your constituents who really want this," and they're like, "My other donors don't." Yeah. How often do you get? Yeah, I mean, they probably don't say it exactly like that.
It happens. I mean, I heard that, or one version of that or another, on banning law enforcement from using facial recognition technology, which was a bill that we tried to run this year, but we couldn't even get. Our Senate sponsor loved it. Nobody in the House wanted to put it on a calendar. So I don't know. So I heard that a lot, and a lot of the tough on crime, I don't want to look soft on crime kind of stuff with that. The ballot access bill that would make it easier for minor parties to participate. I had one guy tell me that.
Those guys.
I had one guy.
You were just telling me earlier that, like, hey, adding 3 or 4 more parties ain't going to help it at all.
Well, it's not, but that doesn't mean that restricting competition in the political market is a good idea. I mean, that's an awful idea. You know what a two-party system is? One step away from a one-party system. That's what it is. And we sit here and clamor each year. The Republicans clamor for the Democrat Party to die, or vice versa. That leaves us with a one-party system, which historically is not a good system. So no, competition in anything is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Curtis Yarvin makes this point really well, that when you have a one-party system, it is necessarily a less powerful government because you have no opposition to the pain as the bad guy. you can't say you can't justify power grabs without an enemy,
right?
Or you got to scapegoat somebody's, and but the problem
also whose heads are cut off when
exactly
things go bad.
Right.
Exactly. Like, I mean, look at China. With everybody knows it's Xi Jinping who's in charge, and when something goes wrong, it's entirely his fault. And there's no real good scapegoat besides the CCP.
Putin's the perfect example. If this doesn't work for him in Ukraine, it's his fault. I mean,
True story. But both of those men have proven that they will use their own police force to make sure that they squash whatever rumors or conversations they want to squash. So, again, historically, one-party system, bad. I don't think there's a lot to argue there. But in Tennessee with ballot access, Texas has a higher number. Your number is a little less than double our number, but you also have about 6 times the population of the state.
Yeah.
So Tennessee's number per capita is, I think it's the worst in the country. It's the 5th highest number in the country. It's a stupid high number. So we were going to get it dropped to 12,000 signatures, roughly, from 56,000 signatures. And even then, I had people telling me, I ride an elephant to work, I'm not going to vote for that. I had one guy look at me over and over again, laughing, going, why in the hell would I vote for this?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because it's America, and, competition is part of America.
It's proper kind of competition. I can see. I can see both of their point of views, because you and I were just talking before we got in about, hey, the ideal bill, is one where both sides benefit, because that usually just like sails right on through. It's like they benefit, we benefit, and we walk away just fine. This is normally how corruption works, by the way.
Right.
But they benefit, we benefit for all of the wrong reasons. But the good bill is when we both benefit for the right reasons.
Right.
And Yeah, but I always I'm very cynical. I'm a young guy, but I'm very cynical about human behavior, about why they're why a politician is going to vote against his own interests. Like you're voting for me to have to work harder to get elected. It's like I don't see that. And but yeah, I mean you are making a very good moral point that hey, this is not supposed to be. This is not the way this thing was supposed to be set up, because the two-party system is actually a very recent development. It's like you didn't really have it in the in the early 1800s when this country was really getting started.
Right.
This is it was a multi-party system back then where you could easily break in, and over time the dominant parties decided it really would be better if we just dominated.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, how do you, like, whenever you have this sort of like pushback where like you're asking me to vote against my own interests, how do you go about pushing that forward? Like if you were like let's say that you actually had a besides like burning crosses outside there on the front lawns or whatever, we don't want to go that far, but like how do you make sure that they understand that this is a real thing that they need to do, and that the voters are the ones who are in charge? How do you make them see how in charge the voters actually are?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with these guys about the understandings of their folks. So, for instance, we worked a bill on jury nullification last year, and I was speaking to the majority leader, who is a former district attorney. Okay,
and I like that.
No, of course not. But when I told him about it, he's like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but we don't need a bill on it." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because everybody already knows about it." Dude, seriously, everybody already knows about it. That's what you're going to go with.
Really?
So, from there, it's just a conversation with the district about jury nullification, and them going, "Well, holy geez, I didn't know this was a thing." And when they call their legislator and tell them that they didn't know that this was a thing, it disproves their point. So that's kind of there's a lot of facets to it. Sometimes you got to address these direct objections, and sometimes pulling on heartstrings will work. There's not a position that I take on any of the pieces of legislation that we are pushing. In every single instance, I can use foundational American principles in its originalist form to back my position. So if the supermajority Republican Congress in Tennessee wants to go against the ideas that founded this country that they're supposedly in favor of, that's also an easy conversation to have with their constituents. Just kind of, it's very situational as that. And sometimes, you don't want to harass these people, depending on the bill. I mean, we had a bill that would have put a non-binding referendum on the ballot for this next governor's race on marijuana. It would have asked about decrim, medical, and full legalization. 3 questions on the ballot, all that good stuff. Non-binding. Because Tennessee's stupid on referendums. Just let me leave that there. Basically, they don't exist in Tennessee. At any rate, so in that situation, we had a bill that wouldn't have made law necessarily. That meant that there were people that would be open to it that weren't necessarily open to it otherwise. So the last thing you want to do in that situation is go get normal to start making phone calls and harassing these guys on that, because all that'll just irritate them. That turns into spite, and that loses your vote. So, I mean, it's a lot of nuance to it, man. There's a lot of finesse to it.
Yeah, and because I did a live reading a while back of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which has a lot of what you just talked about in it. Like, hey, you win more, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
That's right.
And you don't, if you really want to get something from people, you need to like treat them nicely. And because these politicians, they're reptiles, of course, but they're humans too. And the reptiles in skin suits, but the idea, but like you can't treat them that way. It's like you actually do have to treat them with like dignity and respect. And if you're like a more libertarian anarchist, who's like kind of in my boat, you still have to. You can't just like call them a blood-soaked monster and get them to do what you want.
Again, on that ballot access bill, okay, we got that bill to the House floor this year. And when the vote was on a Thursday, when I went to sleep on a Wednesday, I was thinking, man, we might get to 65 or 70 votes in favor on this. And then
what percentage of the legislature is that?
Say it again.
What percentage of the legislature is that?
There's 99 people in the House.
Okay, so that's
technically there's 97 right now because of some turnover and a guy walking away and so on and so forth. But so long story short, we needed 49 votes to pass this bill. Okay. And I was thinking we might actually get 65 votes. Okay. And then the day of the vote, which was on St. Patrick's Day, actually a holiday, I had 13 people flip on me. 13 people that told me on Wednesday they were with me that turned on me on Thursday. And there were 10.
How does that work?
And there were 10 people that were not there. And at least 5 of those were confirmed yes votes. And we got 47 votes. So we fell too short. And so we've got the votes to pass it on the House floor. We've learned that. But you know how many of those 13 people that flipped on me that I went and said something to?
Yeah.
0. You know why?
Why?
What good is it going to do me? What's good is it going to do me to go and confront them and then say, oh, and I need you to support this bill that's in your committee next week? How does it make any sense? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, but you didn't like follow up with them at all and say, hey, I mean, we talked, what, I mean, how did it change your mind?
We will run the bill again, and I will have that conversation when I'm asking them for the vote the next time. But I don't need that.
That's a good idea. See, I like that idea better because now you're coming back to them and and saying, well, hey, you said you would last time, and somehow someone changed your mind. What can I tell you in order to change your mind back?
Right.
That's a better way of having that conversation because you don't do it after the fact. You do it when, hey, I'm about to need you again.
Well, I mean, I can just be like, when I'm having the conversation with them next year, I don't know because I haven't thought about what I would say to them at this point. But I mean, it seems like it'd be really easy just to be like, we're running this ballot access bill again this year. And last year you said you were going to be with us, but you weren't. I'm just kind of I'm trying to figure out where you're going to be with us on this year. It doesn't have to be a bigger conversation than that. It doesn't have to be more confrontational than that. And the reality is I wasn't going to get it out of the Senate anyway. It's fine. But I floated this I got it all the way to the House floor, and I was able to float the trial balloon. And I'm 100% certain that I have enough votes to pass that bill in the House if everybody's present. 100%.
So it can get through the House, but it won't get through the Senate.
Right. Which means I work on 17 senators and I can pass the bill. And
a question, is that typical to where it might take you 3 or 4 or 5 tries to get this thing passed?
Absolutely. And that's one of those things that a lot of people don't understand about legislation. I'll be brief, Peter, and I'll let you get in.
Sure.
Like the civil asset forfeiture bill that we had this year, it would have ended the administrative court, moved everything into a regular court. It would have put some restrictions on how the state interacts with the feds, all this different stuff. And we've talked about civil asset forfeiture in Tennessee for probably 6 years, 6 different sessions. We've run different pieces of legislation on it. But this particular type of legislation, this was the first time any of them had seen this. And yeah, it's going to take some time to get those guys to really understand it enough to where they're comfortable making a decision on it one way or another. And that's one thing that a lot of people do not understand. 1,500 bills a year in a 4-month session, 1,500 bills in a year for the Tennessee legislature. It's not easy to spend time on one thing and get that done in 1 year, especially when it's a more complicated or obscure issue that people are unaware of.
My buddy Nick Cooper has a question here. He's saying, did party leadership have an influence on that? Oftentimes, someone might support a bill until the majority leader has a backroom meeting with them.
So here's what I can tell you on that. I came out. I came out after that vote, and I talked to a couple people before I went home, and one Republican legislator who I don't really have this strong defined relationship with. I've only talked to him a handful of times, and he stayed with me on the vote. But he told me that they were in fact whipping votes against me on the House floor on that bill. Now, as I was leaving that day, just a few minutes after that conversation, I ran into the leader on the street. And I just kind of jokingly walking toward him. He was standing there by himself. He saw me, locked eyes with me. I was like, well, you beat me today, Mr. Lambert. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, that ballot access bill. He's like, oh, I wasn't working against you on that. I didn't know that was yours. That was yours? I was like, yeah, that was mine. He said, yeah, we were just counting votes. We weren't working against you. So I don't know. I know that 13 people flipped on me. A lot of them held chair or vice chair positions, including one guy that voted for the bill in subcommittee last year, in subcommittee this year, in full committee this year, and then voted against it on the House or on the floor. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say the odds are good. I can't imagine a world where 13 people flipped on me all on their own volition like that.
What other bills have you had like that, where, you know, you really have to get the politicians to go against their own interest or they're whipping votes against you and you have to whip them back. Do you have any other stories like that?
I mean, honestly, like a lot of the stuff that we do, they fight against. Again, we've been talking about civil asset forfeiture for at least 6 years, and it's still a garbage process in Tennessee. You know, we had a conversation about jury nullification last year. That didn't go anywhere. You know, so a lot of it is we need to expand our base in the state and our reach so that we can do a better job of getting into these specific districts. But, you know, we're fresh, we're green. We spent a lot of time trying to put together processes and then these ideas for this legislation and stuff. So I'm hoping that once this session is done, I can spend a lot more time doing fundraising and outreach and stuff like that to try to build our base.
I want to come back to fundraising and outreach in a second, but have you ever, because you mentioned earlier that like ballot access basically doesn't exist in Tennessee. It really doesn't exist in Texas either.
Right.
And it does exist in Florida, which is like one of my plan B for getting the anti-tax through, assuming that, you know, assuming everyone in the legislature is retarded and doesn't recognize like the golden goose when they see it. Right. You know, it's like, you know, I would just go through the ballot access referendum in Florida, but you say it doesn't really exist in Tennessee. It also does not exist in Texas. Have you ever had a conversation with them about that, or tried to put a bill through for that to enhance maybe build up that process a little bit more
on ballot access?
Not ballot access, referendum stuff. Ballot referendums.
I haven't made it there yet. So Tennessee law basically does not allow referendums. There's like,
is that the constitutional level or just the legislation level?
I do think it's actually at the state constitution level, but I'm not sure. But there's no appetite. There's zero appetite in the legislature for letting the people make law. Zero appetite. It's a conversation that could be had, but it would. I think that's a really big uphill battle that I would need a lot of friends and a lot of partners on. It can be done. A lot of things, anything can be done, but again, we're a fledgling organization right now, just trying to get our sea legs. So we're not quite ready to take something like that on.
Okay. How old is your organization? Again, what is the name of your organization one more time?
We started last year, and For All is the name of the organization. Tennessee is the chapter. So we're incorporated as For All. But yeah, we're hoping to start additional chapters. I think that.
Tell me about that.
Well, I think that there were a lot of states, like 49 other ones, that could benefit from a group that goes out and genuinely tries to ask the public what's important to you, and find where we can get everybody agreeing. Again, we think that every single human being in the United States, regardless of whether they're left or right or Democrat or Republican or liberal or conservative or anarchist or whatever, every single human being in this country can think of something that they think they should be free to do that they are not currently free to do, or something that the government is doing that it should not be doing. So all we have to do is figure out where the widest consensus is on that stuff, and then we just start picking it apart. So,
and for that consensus building process, I was told you guys have, like, for your fundraising, like, there's an actual cap on how your fundraising works, like per person, so that we're like, you guys don't,
in campaigns.
No, for the way you guys raised it, so that there's a certain amount. You guys like have some sort of limit on how much people can donate to your organization in terms of what that translates to in terms of like the vote that you guys do. Like,
we have a membership program where you pay $5 a month, $60 in a year, and you get to vote, but you can give as much as you want on top.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. So there's the minimum to get the vote is membership, and that's $60 in a year or $5 a month. So, and the idea is if we can get, just think there's 6.6 million people in Tennessee. There's lots of different groups out there that are, one issue groups or, conservative or liberal or whatever, that focus on a singular group of people that have 10, 15, 20,000 people that are contributing to the organization. If you can get to a place where we've got 5,000 people giving us $5 a month, we're hiring lobbying firms. We're doing a lot of really professional stuff. We've got.
Is that how many people you have right now?
I'd be getting a paycheck if that was the case.
Yeah, I would say.
No. Like we haven't reached out to anybody to do membership. So we've done some Facebook posts and we've had some organic growth out of it. And we raised, $15,000 last year. Nothing to shake a stick at, but not exactly, paying people type money. So like you say, I'm hoping to expand that base. If we can get to 1,000 people a month, that's $5,000 a month, or more if they give more than $5 a month, which a lot of our members do. So, the idea is just grow that base. And as we grow that base, we can pay people that can help us grow the organization.
Yes, I really like this model because, I've had this, conversation with with myself and with other people in the past about, because I have Mises GOP, which is a partisan organization, and we're incorporated as a super PAC, not as a nonprofit. But I've had this conversation a lot recently where they're saying, hey, you really should take it as a maybe separate the lobbying aspect off, because part of what I want to do is elect people to local government. That does require a party, and whereas like the lobbying aspect really does not require a party. And
right.
And so, like, what argument would you really make for the nonpartisan aspect? Given that you are in a state with a super majority Republicans,
it takes a knee-jerk reaction to hate me. if I walk into the room and I tell a bunch of Republicans I'm a Democrat or I'm a Libertarian or I'm anything but a Republican, I've immediately created an adversarial relationship. So that's the reason. I'm a nonpartisan person. I don't care who gets elected. I don't get into elections. I vote, but I don't get into elections, and we don't give people campaign money. We don't do any of that stuff. We want to get there and talk about the people's business. And if you want to talk about the people's business, that's great. We will tell you thank you, and we will tell your people to tell you thank you because you're helping and you're doing whatever. And if you're not, we're going to tell your people that you're not helping. Simple as that. We don't care that vote for the guy. He's not helping, but you can vote for him. I don't care. So, I think if we can just build the base big enough in this organization, you could genuinely steer these guys. I mean, we could set an agenda. If we've got 50,000 people statewide, that's going to scare some folks. Particularly in some districts, if we've got 50% or 70% of our membership makes up the half of the registered voters in an area, it's going to be really easy for us to say, here's our agenda. You're on board with it, right? And again, none of the stuff that we're doing is antithetical to any of the foundational principles of this country. And none of it would cost taxpayers any new money.
And I like that because with these bills, like again, your goal is to limit the government, empower the people. And I like how you have that that message that goes both ways. That you can because have you actually tried reaching out to Democrats?
Yes, Democrats are more receptive to me than Republicans are.
How so?
Democrats are looking to build coalitions because they're in a minority. Republicans don't need you. They have the power.
Mm-hmm.
That's a legitimate thing. It's easier for me to have conversations with Democrats most of the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. The regular walking, regular Joe Republican or something like that, it's fine. But anybody that's got any authority or any power, if I'm not on their team, I'm against them.
Yeah, so how do I put this? If you don't have any power, it's like, why do they they don't fear you, and if they don't fear you, they're not going to want to help you, they're not going to want to do what you want. But at the same time, it's like, how are you actually incentivizing these people on the other side? Because you're not, trying to run candidates against them or anything like that. So, what's their incentive to really help you?
There's plenty of other organizations out there that handle elections, and we're friendly with a lot of those guys. So they know what's going on with our legislation and stuff, and they can use that information to their advantage or however they would like to use it. We make sure that we put it out there and share and let people know what's going on with particular candidates and different interactions that we have so that people can respond to it. But the organization itself, we don't need to pick fights. We don't need to take sides because, again, we're not interested in those people. We're not interested in the people that hold the seats. We're interested in the constituents and trying to empower the constituents to lean on their rep to get what they want.
For the for these reps who are the one you mentioned who was kind of whipping votes against you, would you ever consider maybe donating money to his campaign? You can't do that as a nonprofit.
We absolutely can donate money.
Really?
The way that we are set up, we are a 501c4. We are unlimited political activity. We can donate to campaigns. We can do whatever the heck we want. But we don't, and we won't, period. I'll put him in conversations. If he wants to help me out, we know lots of organizations like Young Americans for Liberty. They ask me to go and find legislators that they could lean on and give campaign donations to. I just wish I could find somebody I thought was worthy. But there'll be a lot of that kind of stuff. I can put you in touch with these people. I can put you in touch with these people, but we ain't doing it.
So why is it you don't find any of them like worthy in the sense that like if they vote for your bill, wouldn't you? Say,
I mean,
hey,
I'm a principled person. I'm not somebody that's just trying to trade a favor for a vote.
That's not good for politics.
It's not the politicians I'm trying to please. I think the majority of the population, the regular folks in this country, are sick of everything about how our political system works. The divisiveness, the vitriol, the hate, the lack of effort to try to find ways to bring people together, all of those things. Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding, I read this book that tells me that if I go out and do the right thing, that in the end, I will find the reward in it. So we'll see if that's true or not, because that's the only way I'm going to go about it ever. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to working for the man.
I've read that book.
It's a good book. Really good book.
Many times.
They call it the good book, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read it too. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And it's what motivates me. That's where my politics really comes from. We were given free will. We were given free agency, and it's our job to use it in a constructive way. So I'm not advocating that we take anybody's agency away. I'm advocating that we as a society use our agency in a constructive way.
Yeah, and I like that because in the Roman Catholic, if you can tell by the artwork, but as a Catholic, what we believe, the way we would define liberty is that it's the freedom to choose the good, because to choose the bad, to choose sin in itself it's in itself a constraint. So there's no way to be free to sin, because sin necessarily takes away your liberty. Therefore, freedom must be the freedom to choose the good.
Rome calls us slaves to Jesus. So it doesn't matter. Whatever we choose to surrender to is what we choose to surrender to. It's always going to be something.
Exactly. Like you were slaves to sins, but now you are like free in Christ Jesus. And he says in 2 Corinthians, "Hey, where the Spirit of the Lord is found, there is liberty."
Yep.
Because again, there's in the Spirit of the Lord, there's a lack of coercion there.
Yep.
And yes, again, coming from the free will. So anyway, but I like that because there are other people out there who are again trying to whip votes against you and all that. And the way I see your organization is you're effectively trying to create a counterbalance to those organizations that are really just in it for themselves, and they're really in it for a lot of the wrong reasons. Because it sounds like you're going to all of the people, not just a few, or not just a few select groups, and you're trying to say how are we going to how can we help you manifest your actual political will? Because let's face it, the ballot box really isn't working for you.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about the difference between voting for change versus lobbying for change?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you vote for someone, you're hoping that they end up going and doing the right thing. When you're lobbying for someone, you're directly telling them what the right thing is and that they should do it, or there will be a consequence and that they will lose your vote. That's a significant difference. And the latter is 1000% more effective than the former. We are not going to elect people that are going to fix this for us. The only way that we can fix this whole thing is by finding a way to stop this cycle of division, find things that everybody can get along on, and get to work on those things and start building friendships among people that we typically are at each other's throats. If you are a Republican pushing Republican things, you don't get any help from the Democrats. And the Republicans have a party machine that you, as a layperson, do not have the power to supplant. So if the party doesn't want it, or the person that you're asking to vote for, that whatever the issue is, doesn't want to do it, then they don't necessarily have to worry about the repercussions, because the party can make sure that you don't have any opposition. And they've already drawn the district so that it's going to go Republican, not Democrat. So it doesn't really matter. You can get away with whatever the heck you want to. That's a problem. And it's a problem that's only solved by getting everybody together to lean on those people. So again, what can we find? Where can we find things to get people to agree on things? What kind of things can we find? And I think that we fight a lot over how we should use government to steer society. But there's a whole lot of people out there that can think of a whole lot of things that the government shouldn't be touching in the first place. So we want to dabble in those areas, because that's where we think we can find the most what's the word I'm looking for?
That's where you can find the most success, basically.
The most people will agree, the most agreement, So,
and theoretically, as a democracy, it's like whatever people agree with is what should get done. And I don't know if you've seen that study from Yale University about the correlate a bill's chances of getting passed at the federal level versus its actual approval rating among the people. And what it shows, like as the approval rating of the people goes up, it's like flat. Has a 30% chance whether people want it or not.
Yeah, it doesn't have a huge effect on it. But that's because, again, there's no repercussions. So if you can unite the people that vote in that one district and get all of those people to make sure that representative understands that they're all paying attention and they're all interested in this, and they all want this. And if you don't give it to them, they're going to be upset. I mean, that's kind of that's really all we're trying to get to, is that point where we can convey the will of as many of their constituents as we can.
And what that Yale study also showed was that there actually was a if you just took like the top 1% of who are like the real donor class, and you actually took their approval rating of any particular bill, it actually kind of tracked pretty well with the bill's actual chances of passing. Like there was a 90% chance of 90% approval amongst the top 1%. The bill had basically was a shoe-in. And and I think this is such an important thing, because what your organization is essentially doing is trying to counterbalance this top 1% who basically run everything. And I'm not against the 1%, but I'm just like, hey, this is it shouldn't be a democracy of just them. And
right.
They're important too, and they have their money, and they put their money where their mouth is. Good for them. But hey, the rest of us have interests too that really do need to be addressed. And the one of the things that has been recommended to me a few times was to try to make my organization like a counterbalance to what's called the League of Cities. Because if you are a local government, or you are a city manager anywhere in the United States, you are basically trained by the League of Cities to run your municipal government a certain way. And this is why wherever you go, your local government is going to be basically the same. Because the city managers all basically go through the same exact education process, privately, of course, but and this one organization called the League of Cities is kind of doing what you're doing where they're nonpartisan, and they're just lobbying state governments to kind of mandate how they think municipal governments should be run. And because I'm interested in local politics quite a lot, these people are basically the not the enemy, but they're the number one rival or competitor, because hey, I want to run things a little bit differently. And and so, do you have any organization like that in Tennessee that is like that you are trying to directly counterbalance?
Well, when it comes to municipalities, there is an organization. It's run by the University of Tennessee systems that educates city council, county commission, those kind of folks on, how to run the city, as you say. I don't know a whole lot about how it operates or what it pushes or any of those things, but that's a conversation that I've had with a couple of friends that are in those positions who have direct interactions with those organizations. So I don't have the specialty knowledge of every single facet of the law so that I can go out and point this stuff out. I need people to bring me ideas and bring me specialized knowledge that we can act on. But I've sought that in this particular case because, I agree. The idea of one organization telling every city how they should run their city is probably not the best idea in the whole wide world. Again, competition is a good thing. One of the bills that we ran this year, perfect example of how we would like to do things. I had a guy who was a bail bondsman who called me up and said, "Hey, I need you guys to run a bill on something." I was like, "Tell me what it is." He's like, "Well, what happens is if you're on probation in Tennessee and you get picked up for some new offense, what happens is you're arrested for the new offense and then you bond out. And then a couple of days later, the probation officer catches wind of the fact that you were rearrested and issues a second arrest warrant. So they go and pick you up a second time and you have to bond out a second time." And he's like, "I get to double dip, but it makes me feel guilty. So we need to fix this." I'm like, "Yeah, that's perfect. I will see what I can do with it." So I had a conversation with a state rep who is a former state trooper. And he's like, "I know exactly what you're talking about. You're right. It is a really dumb thing. It should be an easy fix. I'll get the bill drafted up." I mean, this is how I want this is how we need life to work, that bill is scheduled for House floor and Senate floor votes both next week. It hasn't seen a no vote yet. Right. It's been through 3 committees and nobody's opposed it yet. So, it's going to become law, and it's a perfect example of how we want this organization to work. I had a guy tell me a couple of days ago that food sovereignty was his real big thing. And I'm like, man, I wanted to run a bill on food sovereignty this last year, but I didn't know anything about it. Again, I just said I didn't know how to go about it. So essentially what it is protecting food supplies that are inside the state from federal regulations, kind of allowing states to or allowing food producers to interact in a very farmers market way, but in a broader circumstance within the state. Does that make sense? Somewhat.
Can you elaborate it on it just a little bit?
It's less regulation on food produced, manufactured, and sold inside the state.
Okay, so if the food doesn't cross state lines, then
Correct.
It's subject to a lower level of regulation than if it had to cross state lines.
Correct.
Okay. That sounds like a really good idea. That because now you're no longer at the whim of the federal government.
Right. Yeah. I mean, next year, I've got a big idea on cryptocurrency.
Tell us.
I want to create a really wide open market in cryptocurrency in Tennessee, and use some kind of transaction fee or something that the state can catch, and turn that fee into precious metals. Kind of create a scenario where we've got all the hedges against outside external economic factors. And I think it would sell as well, because your younger generation is 100% on board with the crypto stuff, and the old folks all want the precious metals. So you put them together and all of a sudden you got something that everybody seems to like. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I've got Cato people. I've got Bitcoin Magazine folks. I've got a guy who literally wrote a book and started a bank based on precious metals. I'm just going to put them all in a room and see what we can come up with and try to turn it into a law next year. It's going to be fun.
Do you write these bills yourself, or do you, or like how do you get that done?
In some instances, I do, and in some instances, there's legislation that exists that another rep might have a personal stake in an area. For example, we ran 2 bills on expungement this year. We asked about automatic expungement, and it was one of the things that we got approved to work on. So first thing I did was look and see what kind of bills were already introduced, and I found one that did everything that we were trying to ask it to do. So why would I write another bill? We just piggyback and help that rep out, and it endears them to us too. So, because we're trying to help them out with their bill. So we got one of the 2 through. So it's one of the 2 bills that we got signed in. We've already had signed into law. Like I say, we'll have that probation bill that I just mentioned. That'll be a 3rd. And we've got one more that's still alive that would end something called the professional privilege tax, which is a tax that 7 professions pay because they are that profession.
What does that mean? Like you're a carpenter, do you have to pay an extra carpenter tax or something like that? Or
no, there are 7 professions that have to pay this professional privilege tax. It's attorneys, it's securities brokers, it's a couple other lobbyists, handful of different groups, but it's a flat $600 tax because your title is what it is. It's the only reason it's there. It's in addition to any registration or licensing or any of that stuff. It's just a tax for having the title.
As an advice to a guy who's kind of starting his own kind of basic lobbying firm, how would you how would you recommend expansion? How did you expand yours from 0 to to I guess you have close to 250-ish or something like that guys now who are donating to you and helping you move things forward. How would you how do you do that 0 to 100?
I mean, we didn't start at 0. So prior to this, I worked for Americans for Prosperity, and I had done some lobbying. So some of that I had, already experienced and relationships in. Before that, I actually, my laptop was dying. I had to plug it in real quick. Prior to doing the AFP stuff, I ran a libertarian chapter in Knoxville, actually. And it was not only the largest political meeting in Knox County of any type. According to Sarwark back in the day, it was the largest Libertarian Party affiliate in the country. We would regularly seat somewhere between 60 and 80 people every single month for our meetings. And what we were doing was we recognized that we didn't know a whole lot about what was going on in government, or what the problems were, or how anything actually worked in real life. All things that are important to know if you want to make changes. So what we did was we found the rep that was running a civil asset forfeiture bill, and we had him come and talk to us about his bill, and we tried to help him out with that, make some phone calls and stuff like that. And that's how we did our activism. We grabbed the guy that was running medical marijuana bills, or the Democrats that were running legalization bills, or we had a state senator that has a workaround to get around the 17th Amendment provisions, direct election of senators.
Really? What's that idea?
It lets the parties, the legislature essentially would choose the nominee for each party for the Senate race. That's how they get around it. So instead of having a primary, they would just choose the nominee, and then people would be able to vote on either party's nominee.
What would you say is the benefit of that?
Well, what the 17th Amendment did was it murdered states' abilities to check the federal government. Originally, the concept that the founders had was that you would have the president who had to sign off on every piece of legislation that represented the federal government. Then you had the House, which was the higher number of people that represented smaller groups of people locally that was supposed to represent the people. And then the Senate was appointed by state legislatures to represent the states. So when you got direct election of senators, essentially you had two people's houses and no state representation. So that's the idea and the purpose behind it and the thought process behind it. I'd prefer that we just repeal the original constitutional amendment, but
that's not going anywhere. Yeah. Pete, did you have any comments?
I'm taking it all in. I mean, this is it's all new to me. So, but I understand this is where the rubber meets the road. So I want to try and understand as much of this as I can.
Of course, yeah.
Ask questions, man. I'm a wide open book. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
I'm looking for advice on how I should, kind of build my organization, like from a fundraising point of view. Because that's the hard part for any organization.
That's what I'm about to figure out.
Yeah.
Well, what I've said is that the way you do it is you either generate a whole insane amount of buzz, or you go out there and do exactly what Justin's doing. You generate some success, and then you build off of the success.
A couple weeks I'll be able to update the website to show all the stuff that we've already passed, and we'll have 6 bills, and I'm essentially a one-man show right now. So I mean,
you're a one-man show. I didn't realize that.
Aside from the internet, the website stuff, and a little bit of the marketing stuff, I'm basically a one-man show. I got a very limited amount of help currently.
Because you mentioned you don't take a paycheck out of this. So how do you? I assumed you were spending that money on runners and stuff like that to maybe a woman in a tight dress to be in front of the congressman or.
The money that we brought in is parking and nation builder and email services and stuff like that. I mean, it's systems and tools is what we're paying right now.
Okay. And
but yeah, we developed relationships with the legislators long before this thing existed. So when I walked up in there, I didn't walk in cold. I had some allies, I had some friends that would talk to me, shoot me straight, all that good stuff. So
would it bother you at all if I kind of knocked off your idea, for my organization? Because I really like the idea that, you give the people the ability to vote, for what they want lobbied based on their preferences. I really like that idea.
I mean, not that I'm opposed to competition, but I would much rather have a conversation about starting a chapter out there of what we're doing as opposed to something that's a competitor. I think the more traction that we can get with the branding that we have now, the better. I've talked to. I'm trying to get one. Well, Ricky Harrington. I'm gonna try. I've talked to him briefly about it. He ran in a statewide Senate race and pulled 33% of the vote in a losing effort. So he's got some name recognition. He could probably just throw it out there and splash it down and get 2,000 or 3,000 people donating right out of the gate. And if we can get somebody like that to start a chapter, we can use a little bit of that to help us fund some of these other chapters in these other states, and maybe pay somebody to just do tons and tons of fundraising for us, So I don't know. It's a work in progress, but again, I think that what we're trying to do specifically, we have the vote, We keep all of our issues separate. So when you go to donate,
Yeah.
if you think civil asset forfeiture is important, but you think no-knock raids is stupid, you don't have to give money to no-knock raids. You can give money straight to civil asset forfeiture. Any one issue, it's all broken up. Again, we're not trying to fight people. We're not going out there and being negative on stuff. We're not playing into this same crap that everybody else does. We want to actually bring people together. That is the goal, is to get people that hate each other to talk to each other and agree on stuff. That's the game. And we've been good at it. I took, if I say a rhino, you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
Neocon, yeah.
There's this guy here in the state who is a very, very prominent rhino hunter. Okay. Like me, he's the one that's trying to take them all down. Right. One of our good allies with the organization is a regional coordinator for the Democratic Socialists out of Memphis. And I had both of them do our little ballot that we sent out. They're not members, but they're friends. You know what I'm saying? So I had them both do our ballot. They agreed on 18 out of 26 items.
I can see
They
that.
disagreed on exactly 2. And everything else, one of them liked it and the other one abstained on. So it can be done. We can find a lot of common ground if we just look for it. And I think that the contrarian in the market, you know what I mean? Nobody operates this way. That makes it more appealing. It makes it new. It makes it fresh. And I think it's important to hold on to that from a principle position.
Yeah.
You know,
There's an asymmetric value to it because nobody else is doing it.
Right. We're not playing into the same crap that everybody else plays into. I think that's an important way to go about it. But I'd be ecstatic to talk to you about trying to open up a chat.
I would like to have that conversation later.
Nick has, let me do Nick's question here. I'm curious about what your old LP colleagues think about your group. Are any of them helping out? Then he says, this sounds harsh, but it seems like you've already passed more bills than the Tennessee LP.
I've passed more bills than every state's LP.
All combined, yeah.
Probably combined.
Real here. I've already got 5. I'm about to get 6, and there's a chance I'll have 7 by the end of this session.
Based.
That's more than everybody. It's more than most of them combined. Yes, a lot of those people are the base of our donors. A lot of the Tennessee Libertarian Party or make up the base, because those are the people that know us. You know, they're familiar with us. I don't have to go out and sell them on it to try to make them believe that I'm trustworthy and all that good stuff. But you know, it's just like every other libertarian party. Everybody likes to talk about activism, and then we say, let's go do this, and nobody shows up. So it's not entirely the case. I've got a handful. There's definitely 3 or 4 guys that are LP members here in the state that have given significant contributions to the organization through work, not just money. So I'm not trying to discount it, but you know how that stuff goes. When you're asking people to work for free, it's not exactly an easy scenario sometimes. So
yeah. I'm going to have to jump out of here. Justin, I'll talk to you. All right.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, man.
I think about to go ahead and wrap it up anyway, but I definitely want to have that conversation with you later about, perhaps opening a chapter or 2 in Texas and Florida. Those are 2 states I'm really looking to operate in. Because Florida is where I was born and raised, and I have a lot of family there. And so I really have a strong interest in making sure that state is better run. Particularly, I'd love having DeSantis in there, but he's term limited, and next term he'll get reelected this time around. But hey, I got to have some insurance policy for afterwards, and I would like to have something like this operating in Florida. And whereas Texas, where I am right now, it's like this is a state that a little bit on the downside. We have a lot of rhinos here who really need their hands held, so to speak, at passing the right pieces of legislation. And I come from a family of lobbying a little bit. And like what you're saying to me is like kind of reminds me of all the stories I had growing up about, when you like actually just get in there and talk with them, a lot of times they just need someone to tell them that this is important and say, here's the bill.
Yep.
And that a lot of times they're not going to edit it. They're just going to like rubber stamp it and send it along.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a sales job. Make no mistake. It is a sales job. So if you've ever taken a sales training of any type, everything that you heard in there, absolutely 100% applies.
And let's continue that conversation offline, because I think that's somewhere that this needs to go. I think that's what you're doing is so very, very healthy, for not just our democracy, but our nation as a whole. Right. I don't really believe in democracy, but I'll take it. I like what you're doing. Where can people find you, and more importantly, where can they donate to you?
foralltn.org is the website. I apologize because, again, with the volunteers, my website still reflects the stuff we did last year and does not reflect the stuff we did this year. But you can donate. You can sign up to become a member on the website, and we would greatly appreciate you doing so, whether you live in Tennessee or not. Again, we want to take this nationwide. We want to bring it to your state. So if you don't live in Tennessee and you contribute, all you're doing is helping us get it to your state. And we would appreciate that very much. Social media, we're Facebook, For All TN, Twitter, Instagram, same thing. Those are probably the places that you will find the best updates, the most recent information, all that good stuff about what we've got going on legislatively, what bills we've got still floating around, all those fun things. We are really easy to reach out and talk to as well. You can find me on Facebook. You can shoot me a DM. You can shoot a message to the organization when you go and follow the page. You can go to our website and click the little email, the info thing at the very top of the screen, and it comes straight to my phone. I'm responsive. We need help. We'll take whatever you guys want to do to help us out. Many hands make light work. And again, I really think that if we are going to take back our country, the first thing we have to do is take it from the people that we gave it to, which is the people that we elected. And we don't take that back by getting rid of the person that we elected and electing somebody else. It's not how it works. We take it back by having a conversation, an open conversation with our legislator that continues throughout their entire service about what is important to us as that person's constituents. And again, if we cannot figure out how to do that, if we cannot find a way to bring people together to have that conversation with these legislators, we cannot take it back. We cannot change the status quo without that.
That's right. Yeah, I think that in order to take back our country, we first have to take control of the funding, and the fundraising. If you want to be if you want to see the change, you're going to have to pay for that. You can't just vote for change. That does not work. Voting for change never changes things. Look at how Donald Trump, he got elected. He was the president of the United States. What happened? Yeah, he had the whole executive. He was not in control of the entire executive branch. It's like the executive branch was in control of him. Right. Other way around. And so, I mean, your point is extremely well taken and well made. That you don't vote for change. You have to pay for change, and the way and the people you pay for change matters. You need to be paying guys like Justin and guys like me. I'm just this is how that works. Is that you need to be have this kind of specialization. That this is the natural niche for lobbying that our founding fathers foresaw, because they actually put this in the First Amendment that you have a right to lobby your government for exactly this reason.
Yeah.
It's like it's in the first. The right to lobby your government is a First Amendment right for good reason. For exactly like this, is that you can't vote for change. You have to pay for change, and it sucks because if you're like a libertarian. Yeah, if you're a libertarian anarchist or you're a conservative, you might feel like it's dirty or whatever, or it's unprincipled or whatever. But no, this actually works, and this is actually how. And the founding fathers, they put it in the Constitution for exactly this reason, because it does work. And and so if you have an item that you really want, a piece of legislation or something like that you really want to see passed, you gotta have to give it to a guy like Justin and make it worth his while to go in and have him advocate for you and make that change to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that as a lone individual, but it's hard to do that as a lone individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to go up there and be like, yeah, I'm the only person that really cares about this, but I would really appreciate it if you would do something on it. That's not going to win you a lot of folks. But I mean, yeah, if you can be a part of a much larger group that's civilized, that's not like throwing throwing shoes at the president or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about doing. It's really simple. We really, make a phone call or send an email and say, I really wish you would support this bill. I hope you do. Thank you. Bye. I mean, you don't have to do anything more than that.
Most of the time, their phone calls, their phones don't ring. So if yours ringing, you're the only guy, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, I've got all kinds of ideas of things that I'd like to do that would make this really easy for people to participate. But wanting to do those things and actually getting to those things is two different things. So, but one of the things we put together a report card, not a scorecard like a lot of organizations run, where they track votes and they score people based off of it. We just did a report card where we had, these were our bills, and this is where the legislator said they were on our bill, whether they voted for it or not. They said they supported the idea. Great. I told you that's what it says, but I'd like to get to a point where you can go to that report card, look up your rep, find any one of our issues, and just say, oh, there's civil asset forfeiture. That's the one that's important to me. Oh, and look, there's a button right there. If I just click this button, it will send an email to this legislator saying, thank you for your support. How easy is that? I mean, we want to do a lot of that stuff. We want to try to put together systems and things like that, but I am not that tech guy. That's one of those things.
I've actually seen that function on other like lobbying group websites, I'm blanking on the name of one, but they actually have something exactly like that. I thought that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I didn't know. It was just something that I thought we should do. We didn't want to score these people based off of their vote, but at the same time, we've got to get the information out there about how these people feel about a given bill or position or whatever. So, did I lose you?
Nope. I see you. You see me?
Yeah. My 14-year-old, I think, has my mouse in the other room and is playing with it. At any rate, now I lost track of where I was. Where was I?
Well, I think we were just about to wrap it up anyway. But Justin, it has been really great. Thank you for coming on this show. You've been such a good messenger for this message.
Thank you. It's always nice to hear that the work I'm putting in is appreciated. That's almost payment enough.
Just this philosophy of you don't vote for change, you pay for change.
Yeah.
That is so critical and important. And it's like if you're not from the lobbying world, you don't get it. And if you're just from the democratic world, you don't get it.
You have two options. You can participate in it, or you can allow whatever happens to happen to you. I mean, it's really that simple. So we just want to make it as easy as we can to get people to participate in it and work on things that we can get as many people as we can to agree on.
Yeah. It's like you need to play the game the way the way it's played, or shut up.
Yeah.
It's like you could like if you don't play the game the way it's supposed to be played, you're basically on the side. You're sidelining yourself, or you're like
that's the classic libertarian mistake is to pretend that to pretend that the world doesn't work the way that it works. I mean, there is a playing field and there are rules that are there now. That doesn't mean that they can't be changed and modified and stuff like that, but you can't just flip a switch and all of it go away. It just doesn't work that way.
Does not work that way. Justin, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure's mine.
Have a nice night.